Welcome to Exit 425. I'm Steve Ray. Our mission here, substantial current affairs information and education that goes where you want it to go. Find the podcast at Studio 38 Audio on Apple or Spotify and many other services, and find video at Exit 425 on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Today we have Joe Neal, longtime lawyer in his third term on Clarington Council. Welcome and thank you for joining me on Exit 425.
Thank you, Steve.
Regional Councillor for Wards 1 and 2, Clarington. What does that mean?
Well, it means I sit on two councils. I sit on the local council for Clarington, representing basically the area between Town Line Road over to Liberty, east. In other words, that's the western border to the eastern border, and obviously the lake right up to the top of Clarington. So that's my area that's my area for regional council and for local council as well. I guess I cover both areas, but there's also local councillors. So we kind of have duplicate responsibilities, I guess, for local council. But for regional council, I'm one of three Clarington representatives. So obviously we're 3 of 28 over at the region. So that's a battle I think we tend to fight most recently on some issues, but being 3 councillors out of 28, sometimes the odds aren't very good for Clarington. So.
And that 3 is based on the population of Clarington, right?
Well, no, that's the interesting thing. It's not actually, because we were looking at ward boundary, or the region was looking at the number of councillors per municipality about 5 years ago. And Clarington has, for example, only 3 representatives, but we have more than the population of Scugog, Uxbridge, and Brock combined, and also more area than those 3 municipalities, but they have between them 6 representatives versus our 3. So Durham Region is not representation by population. So I think that's one of the challenges that Clarington has as being part of Durham Region. So, like I represent approximately 40,000 residents. In fact, it's probably more than that in terms of, it's probably closer to 60,000 Clarington representatives that are in wards 1 and 2. But there's many councillors that represent substantially less constituents. That's so across Durham Region.
Is there a mechanism for that to change?
Well, it's difficult to change because there's a lot of vested interests there. So it didn't go too far last time. They hired an expert out of the University of I can't remember. I think it was, but they hired a sort of a political scientist expert to look at it. But not a lot changed. There was some, Oshawa went down, I think, 2 representatives, and Whitby got another one, and Ajax, I believe, got another one. So that's really all that happened the last time. So I think the big problem is the overrepresentation of certain municipalities in the north. They would say otherwise, but.
But if they had the representation level that Clarington has, they might complain.
Well, I mean, like one of the issues we've been, I guess, at odds with Durham Region recently is the anaerobic digester and the whole issue of waste. Where's all that going to go? So it's very easy to push it into Clarington because Clarington only has 3 votes, right? So the votes tend to go, 20 to 8 or something like that, or roughly. So Clarington has no ability on its own to make those change any of those decisions, and at the same time, other municipalities are more than happy to have Clarington pick up, have all the waste, either incinerated or in Clarington, or under the latest proposal, part of it will be, the organic part will be put into an anaerobic digester. So one of my big issues with that is we have a park, a Courtice Park that we want to develop. This has been, on our plan for as long as I've been a councillor, which is since 2010. And all this is going to be right beside the Courtice Waterfront Park. So that's one of the reasons why that's being disputed by Clarington right now. And we're in dispute resolution with the region at the moment. So even though I sit on Durham Region Council, I find I tend to at times go to battle with the staff and the rest of Durham Region Council, because I don't feel that Clarington is dealt fairly. It's a fair shake at the region.
Well, we do have like a lot of that sort of thing down at the end of Courtice Road, exit 425.
Right. Yep.
And so that's the root of it, I guess, is the fact that that Clarington, has the physical properties that they're looking for, but also not the votes to block it.
Right.
Is there anything that the people of exit 425 and Courtice could do to make their voice more widely known at Durham Region Council?
I think it's important that Clarington and Courtice residents be aware of the issues. So when the region put out a flyer to every household in Clarington, I think it was called Know the Facts, they left out a lot of important facts. So I think that was a lot of misinformation on the part of the region, i.e. it failed to mention that Clarington's plans for that area includes a large, hopefully, a park, a waterfront park that will be a municipally wide sort of destination. And it's not really compatible with having all these waste facilities, basically on the other side of the road. So, and Clarington's planning considerations have received zero credence at the region, even though the region's on record as saying when these types of facilities are being considered, local planning considerations must be taken into account. The region actually passed a resolution worded that exact way, or substantially that way, and sent it to I think the Minister of the Environment, but left out the fact that they're running roughshod over Clarington's planning concerns in that area. So I think it's important that the residents be aware of what the real issues are, and the fact that we are attempting to have that decision sort of changed through a formal dispute resolution process.
So with any kind
coming up in the fall of this coming up, I believe that's in the near future, that actual dispute resolution process will be unfolding. So
is there any role for the individual resident to play in terms of voicing their opinion and their dissatisfaction with this? Because
to be honest with you, it'd be nice to know that people are listening. Sometimes, like I said, the region has put out an information piece, which I think left out a lot of important facts. So if through your medium, if that can help get the message out that what we're trying to accomplish, and our big priority is our waterfront park down at the foot of, as you say, off of exit 425, then that will be a great help to know that the support is behind us. So I mean, we can't talk in detail about what's going on in this dispute resolution process, but all of Clarington Council is supporting that position that we've taken with the regions. And there's other councillors that say it's the greatest thing to have. For example, there's a councillor in Pickering who's on record as saying that, but I've never heard him advocate to have it built in Pickering. So anyway.
So you know, NIMBYism at its best, sort of thing.
Well, I think they would say that that's what we are, but you know, we already have the incinerator, which is operating. There's been, you know, concerns from time to time about some of the exceedances which have happened. For example, with dioxins and furans, just being one of them, which there's no safe level, and there's been exceedances, and you know, there's no other municipality has to contend with that. So besides Clarington, so we've got, you know, we're becoming, you know, we're becoming the waste capital of Durham Region. So, which precedes my sitting on Clarington Council, and that's really the reason I got into running in Ward 1 in the first place, was that issue, which was obviously a very hot topic in 2008, 2009. I ran in 2010, but sort of the horse was out of the barn at that point. However, I still thought we could have challenged it perhaps successfully, but that host community agreement had been signed by the previous council. So, you know, I think Courtice has enough in terms of waste facilities. Is also, you know, St. Mary's Cement is going to be burning, you know, garbage as well. They've got a permit for that. So there's 100,000, roughly 140,000 tons of garbage is going to be incinerated in the St. Mary's Cement kiln to fire up, you know, what they need for to process cement. So again, if you think of our waterfront and the jewel it should be, the concerns are there about what's all going to be put in the waterfront. So as opposed to nice recreational facilities. So
we've got amazing waterfront, and you know, I like cycling, and it's one of the Courtice is one of the few areas where you can't actually see the lake from the waterfront. Most of the waterfront trail. There is that one trail down at the end of Courtice Road, which is nice, but it kind of begins and ends in nowhere. And to have that park that you know, Janice talked about it as well, and you've talked about it, that'd be pretty amazing to have. So to not have the sewage plant, waste energy plant, and a anaerobic digester right there would be a bit of a bonus at this point.
Well, one of our big, I think you mentioned Councillor Jones, her and I are both very strong advocates of being able to cycle or walk safely from the top end of Courtice right down to the new park. So somehow that got missed when the new underpass was built. Somebody dropped the ball, or maybe the province refused to do anything in terms of, you know, making provision for a nice cycling lane that would go under the bridge as well as a pedestrian lane. But Councillor Jones and I are working, I think, quite hard on trying to ensure that all new development that's going to take place in South Courtice, which there's going to be a lot over the next 10 to 20 years, that actually probably the next 5 to 20 years, but that all has to come with good cycling and pedestrian access to the Courtice waterfront. So, you know, we've managed to make some changes to the plans that are afoot for example, in the Southwest secondary plan, and we're going to hopefully have a great trail that you can follow, and it'll hopefully find its way over to the future GO station and then south. But it's got to somehow get under that underpass, which there's not enough space there right now, which is a huge disappointment for how that came about. So, you know, there's been talk about a pedestrian bridge, which may be a little far removed from what the province is prepared to do, but we do have to get good connectivity down to that waterfront. So you shouldn't have to drive your car down there, is my point.
Agreed. And again, as a cyclist, knowing that there's a couple of nasty divots right in the cycling path on the edges of those lanes in that underpass, make that for a bit of a jolt just going through there. So even what's there isn't terribly great. So
Right.
That's an awesome goal for connecting Courtice, what is Courtice now and what will be Courtice in the future with the lake.
Right. And also that railway underpass has to get changed. We built sometime, I think about roughly 9 years ago, there was a similar one in Newcastle that was all changed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got a nice pedestrian underpass as part of the tunnel. That came at a big cost. So I'd like the same amount of money has to get spent in Courtice, or somebody's got to come up, whether it's through a developer or the region. Somebody's going to have to help in a substantial way to fund that, because you can't keep that same underpass and expect the type of traffic to negotiate that underpass that we're going to see once that does become developed. So
even the traffic that's there now, and it's been supported by a widening of Courtice Road south of that underpass. Just the traffic alone that's generated because of the trail and that level of access that there is now, and the number of people around, makes that really a sketchy little underpass and a sketchy little section of that road. So
right.
That's great news to hear that there's concern about that. So we've got a federal election, and at face value there's not much connection between federal and municipal. We do have a year of elections, with this, and then we've a provincial one in the spring, and then a municipal one next fall.
Right.
What sort of things are you looking for? What maybe wish list would you have as a potential outcome from the federal election?
Well, one of the problems, I guess, for Clarington has been Camp 30, which a lot of residents want to see that preserved. It was designated a National Historic Site. So, and I know that I know he was in opposition at the time, but Aaron O'Toole was quite vocal about Camp 30. So if by chance he becomes prime minister, it would be nice to see him come through with some substantial federal dollars for Camp 30, because Clarington, between, like I said, the Courtice Waterfront Park, Bowmanville West Waterfront Park, which has to get finished off, and we just picked up some other lands. I guess I'm not sure if I can talk about it in public, but we picked up another sort of piece of future recreational land, and then you have Camp 30. Clarington's going to be hard pressed to deal with all of those capital requirements and I'm just talking about the parks, which are quite popular. But if we're going to fully finish off what needs to be done at Camp 30, we're going to need Aaron O'Toole's help. Hopefully, if like I said, if he becomes prime minister, I'm sure he'll be getting some correspondence from Clarington about that. And if Justin Trudeau is the prime minister, probably the same thing, But I think, Aaron O'Toole being our MP, I would think if he became prime minister, that we should see something happen on Camp 30.
Again, something that is seen frequently when you're cycling around the community is that camp and all that it was, and the history that's there. So
right, the buildings are deteriorating. This is something that I've been listening to for 10 years. There's been a series of quote, there was at one point there was a deal that was struck with the developer, and then it turned out it wasn't a deal. So the Jurylands Foundation, which is charged with basically getting those buildings into some sort of state where they'll be preserved, and creating something, whether it's a park or that land has to get turned over to them, and then the money has to be found to properly preserve that and create, create a good historic park, I guess. So right now it's at a standstill.
Joe, if you were to pick one priority that you really wanted to see accomplished, pushed through, whatever, prior to the next municipal election, again, next fall, what would that priority be?
I would say it's the Courtice Waterfront has to get designed and started, as well as the Bowmanville West Waterfront. So I think, waterfront parks are, we should have the best waterfront parks in Durham Region, if not, the whole province. So we've got great assets like that, but we're not really using them to their full potential. And we've got to get on with getting those properly developed, because, I think if we had good parks in those locations, the use would be, just phenomenal. So people are looking for a place to spend an afternoon, have a picnic, a family picnic. It's always great to be near water. If you go to many other municipalities, you'll see that we do have, the Bowmanville East Waterfront Park is heavily used. So I think that's what our residents really are looking for. And we need to up the quality of life, for example, in your, as you say, the exit 425 area. So just to provide a destination. So if you have a free afternoon or a free evening and you want to get some exercise and then spend a bit of time sitting by the water, or in close proximity to the water, or like I said, having a nice family picnic or something, we need to provide that sort of, we need to provide the opportunity for that. And like I said, I've heard about the Courtice Waterfront Park for the better part of 10 years, and it's still just a thought at this point. And nothing concrete is in place in terms of financing for it. I mean, there's always demands for money when you're in municipal politics, but I think it's Courtice's turn and the turn for Bowmanville West. But there's some other challenges in Bowmanville West with the cottagers, but we don't have that situation in Courtice where there's some cottagers that have vested interests. So it's time for, I think the Courtice Waterfront to take center stage.
And even to see the response based on the improvements that have been made, pretty significant. There's always, certainly on a even close to warm, sunny day, there's lots of traffic down there. So the opportunities, well, people will jump all over any kind of improvement, even based on what we've got now. So I agree with you. It would be a huge draw, and all kinds of great things could happen from that. So and the waterfront, it's a special kind of place, and you can't buy that for a municipality. So the fact that we're along the north shore of Lake Ontario and not using it to its full extent, it's a shame. So I'm glad that that's a priority. I know that that's what Janice talked about as well, is that that's something that she wants, signed and, shovels in the ground sort of thing, ready before the next municipal election. So that's great. Joe, time is working against us here. I'd like to thank you for joining me on Exit 425. And I appreciate you taking the time to be with me to talk about things about Courtice and Exit 425 tonight.
Okay.
This interview will be available on Instagram and Facebook under the Exit 425 banner. It will also be available as a podcast under Studio 38 Audio's Exit 425, and portions will be incorporated at some point into an episode of I'm Just a Political Idiot, Civics for Adults. Look up Studio 38 Audio on Apple Podcast or Spotify, and don't forget to like and subscribe. To Joe and everyone listening, thanks again for joining me on Exit 425. Substantial current affairs information and education that goes where you want to go. I'm Steve Ray.
Thanks, Steve.